Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley Social Distancing Service. My name is Catherine Coyle, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Unitarian Universalism is a welcoming religious tradition informed by many sources. It's about accepting all of the imperfect people who interact with it. It's a faith made up of broken, questioning, and innocent people. It's about finding a community of people who don't want to change you, only help you be the best version of yourself, however that looks. We like to say that we don't have to think alike to love alike. If you're interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism or about our congregation, please visit us at uusv.org. I'd like to invite everybody to join us for our virtual coffee hour immediately following this service. Now, let our service begin.
Welcome again this morning. I'm glad you're tuning in with us. I'm Reverend Michael Carter, and I'm the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. I hope you are weathering and these changes, this new paradigm that's coming to not only our nation, but it looks like the world. And I hope you're staying safe and that you are at least trying to be your best selves. It's a challenging time, but a new world is being born. Our opening words this morning, as I light the chalice. Our church is a free church and a liberal church. Weak and strong we come, humble and proud we come, bruised and jubilant we come, mystics and poets, dreamers and doers, and wonderfully we all gather together, each of us unique. We pause this sacred hour on this Sunday morning, this Father's Day, to be refreshed and to be strengthened. And we give thanks for such an extraordinary blessing to be part of this community, to have our freedom, and to have our congregation. Amen. Please join us as we gather to sing our opening hymn, number 8, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit. Okay. Our reading this morning is from John O'Donohue's To Bless the Space Between Us. It's a gorgeous, it's just gorgeous. That's all I can tell you. It's entitled For a New Father. As the shimmer of dawn transforms the night into a blush of color, futured with delight, the eyes of your new child awaken in you a brightness that surprises your life. Since the first stir of its secret becoming, the echo of your child has lived inside you, strengthening through all its night of forming into a sure pulse of fostering music. How quietly and gently that embryo echo can womb in the bone of a man and foster across the distance to the mother a shadow shelter around this fragile voyage. Now as you behold your infant, you know that this child has come from you and to you. You feel the full force of a father's desire to protect and to shelter. And perhaps for the first time, there awakens in you a sense of your own mortality. May your heart rest in the grace of the gift, and you sense how you have been called inside the dream of this new destiny. May you be gentle and loving. May you be clear and sure. May you trust in the unseen providence that has chosen all of you to be a family. May you stand sure on your ground and know that every grace you need will unfold before you, like all the mornings of your life. This is the time in our service where we invite you to share a joy, a concern. We do this so that we can know what's going on in the congregation, but also to have time for you to share and to feel our support. Joy Levine has a poem that she'd like to share with us, so we'll be treated to that. But this is the time, and the floor is now yours.
So I'm Joy, happy to be part of the Unitarian Church. And this poem really touched me as I came across it recently, and I thought I would like to share it with you. It's by someone named S.C. Lurie. I started calling that girl back, the girl who loved living, the girl who danced instead of walking, the girl who had sunflowers for eyes and fireworks in her soul. I started playing music again, hoping she would come out. I started looking for beautiful moments to experience, so she would find that she felt safe enough to show herself, because I knew she was in there. And she needed my kindness and my effort to come to the surface again.
Hi, it's Anna and Ray.
Hi.
It's our 29th wedding anniversary today, and we're out hiking, but we wanted to have this in Joys and Sorrows, that it's a joy and a sorrow that we've been married.
Oh, it's almost always a joy.
And this is our song that we had when we got married. Let it be a dance. So that's it.
Yes, thank you.
For those of you who didn't have anything to share or chose not to, just know that the venue is always open, and that you are in our thoughts and prayers. Just know that. And for those of you who did share, we are eternally grateful. I invite you to join me in our prayer and meditation. I want to encourage you just to center yourselves in whatever way you feel comfortable, and afterwards we will have our time of quiet. I want to share with you this morning, it's called a Father's Day Prayer. It's by Kirk D. Lodeman Copeland. A Father's Day Prayer. Let us praise those fathers who have striven to balance the demands of work, marriage, and children with an honest awareness of both joy and sacrifice. Let us praise those fathers who have striven to balance the demands of work and marriage, those fathers who, lacking a good model for a father, have worked to become a good father. Let us praise those fathers who, by their own account, were not always there for their children, but who continue to offer those children, now that they are grown, their love and support. Let us pray for those fathers who have been wounded by the neglect and hostility of their children. Let us praise those fathers who, despite divorce, have remained in their children's lives. Let us praise those fathers whose children are adopted and whose love and support has offered healing. Let us praise those fathers who, as stepfathers, freely choose the obligation of fatherhood and earn their stepchildren's love and their respect. Let us praise those fathers who have lost a child to death and continue to hold that child in their hearts. And let us praise those men who have no children, but cherish the next generation as if they were their own. Let us praise those men who have fathered us in their role as mentors and guides. And let us praise those men who are about to become fathers. May they openly delight in their children. And finally, let us praise those fathers who have died, but live on in our memory and whose love continues to nurture us. And now for this brief moment, while our minds are one, I invite you to join me in the eloquence of silence. And so it is. The philosopher William James reminds us that the greatest use of life is to spend it on something that will outlast it. And in that spirit, I invite you, as we now collect this morning's offering, to give generously, as you always do. And there is a PayPal link that you may press to give your donation and your offering. And please bear in mind that we are more than appreciative and eternally grateful for your gifts to us. And I say thank you in advance. And now, an old favorite, our UU national anthem, if you will. I invite you to join in singing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. All right, let's talk about Father's Day. It's a rough day for a lot of people, but we're gonna get through it because it's also a very good day for a lot of people. So let me just give you a little history about this holiday. And what you'll find interesting, at least I did, is that women or a woman they were advocates for this holiday. Father's Day was inaugurated in the United States in the early 20th century to complement what? Mother's Day, celebrating fathers, fathering, and fatherhood. Father's Day was founded in Spokane, Washington at the Young Men's Christian Association, the YMCA, in 1910 by a woman named Sonora Smart Dodd. She was born in Arkansas. Its first celebration was in the Spokane YMCA on June 19, 1910. You see, her father was a Civil War veteran. His name was William Jackson Smart, and he was a single dad who raised 6 children. So after hearing a sermon about Mother's Day at Central Methodist Episcopal Church in 1909, she told her pastor that fathers should have a similar holiday honoring them. Now, although she initially suggested June 5th because it was her father's birthday, the ministers didn't have enough time to prepare their sermons, and the celebration was deferred to the 3rd Sunday of June. Now, initially, it didn't have much success. You see, in the 1920s, Dodd stopped promoting the celebration because she was studying at the Art Institute of Chicago, and it kind of faded into obscurity, even in Spokane. In the 1930s, Dodd returned to Spokane after getting her education and started promoting the celebration again, raising awareness at a national level. Now, she had the help of those trade groups that would benefit most from the holiday. For example, manufacturers of ties, tobacco pipes, and any traditional present to fathers. These groups supported her. And since 1938, she had the help of the Father's Day Council, founded by the New York Associated Menswear Retailers, to consolidate and systematize the commercial promotion. See, it's always has some money has to be involved here. And Americans resisted the holiday, okay? Get this, they resisted the holiday during the first few decades because Americans thought that it was just an attempt by merchants to replicate the commercial success of Mother's Day. Now, I don't know if that would happen today, but they resisted this holiday. Newspapers frequently featured cynical and sarcastic attacks and jokes about the holiday. But the trade groups continued. They didn't give up. They kept promoting it and even incorporated the jokes into their advertisements, and they eventually succeeded. And by the mid-1980s, the Father's Day Council wrote in Spokane that Father's Day has become a second Christmas for all the men's gift-oriented industries. A bill to accord national recognition of the holiday was introduced in Congress in 1913. In 1916, President Woodrow Wilson went to Spokane to speak in a Father's Day celebration, and he wanted to make it official, but Congress resisted. They feared that it would become over-commercialized. United States President Calvin Coolidge recommended in 1924 that the day be observed by the nation, but he stopped short of issuing a national proclamation. 2 earlier attempts to formally recognize the holiday have been defeated by Congress. In 1957, Maine Senator Margaret Chase Smith wrote a proposal accusing Congress of ignoring fathers for 40 years while honoring mothers, thus singling out just one of the 2 parents. In 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson issued the first presidential proclamation honoring fathers, designating the 3rd Sunday in June as Father's Day. But it wasn't until 6 years later that the day was made a permanent national holiday when President Richard Nixon signed it into law in 1972. So to all of you fathers out there this morning, I just want to say thank you, and to say to you that in an increasingly fatherless America, I'm glad there's you. So many of our future fathers are out there are growing up without a model of male love. Conflicting images of what it means to be a man in our culture are so destructive and dysfunctional, and even dangerous. It takes more to becoming a man than just making a baby. To become a father is really not that difficult, but to be a father is. And so today we salute fathers for their love and commitment. We salute those fathers who have come to realize that the best thing that they can spend on their children is their time. In a society where babies are making babies, the challenges are enormous. Perhaps you have a father or father figure you want to appreciate today, and then by all means do so. If father is still alive, there's still time to communicate and to perhaps even forgive. Time to let him know how much you love and cherish him. And of course, if you don't, then you don't say that. But if you do, it's never too late. If he has died, yes, there's still time to communicate and forgive if there is a need for forgiveness. For those who have or have had a difficult time with father, forgiveness is the key. It's the only way I know to let go and to move on without having the baggage, without carrying a ball and chain around your leg through the rest of your life. That means forgiving yourself as well. I wish I knew an easier way. Father's Day compels us to reflect upon our own relationship with our fathers, our own unique relationship, and like many, that relationship may have been less than ideal. Perhaps your dad was distant or aloof. Perhaps he was overbearing and abusive. Perhaps he was completely absent from our lives, physically and or emotionally. He might have suffered from a mental illness or substance abuse, and we carry the scars of that upbringing to this very day. Our memories of our fathers may be fraught with pain and desire, pain from the reality of our childhood and the desire for having the father of our dreams. Father's Day can be a reminder of hard times lived through as opposed to the joyous times we treasure. And there are some men who are perfectly content not to have children, and we don't want to exclude you. We don't want you to feel excluded. Yet recognizing that all relationships, especially with dad, are complex and not always how we would like them to be. But it is still fitting and right to honor Father's Day, to acknowledge that they are and that they were only human beings with beauty and grace, as well as faults and flaws and frailties and failings. We need to acknowledge this. Our culture tries to tell us men what is woman's work or what mother's work is and what is not. Women and mothers are supposed by our culture to be more aware of the needs of others. After all, it's women who give birth, which seems the most intimate connection that one person can have with another person. Perhaps there is some truth in what our society tells us, but the real point is that we men too are also capable of a very deep sensitivity to the needs and interests of another person. We too are capable of treating other people as ends in themselves rather than as means to our own ends. We too are capable of unselfish love towards others. We must acknowledge all of it. Lakota Chief Sitting Bull is quoted to have said to the white man, "Let us put our minds together and see what life we will make for our children." He never imagined, of course, that things would turn out like this. Fathers, therefore, have a significant relationship with humanity. They pass their wisdom on to us, intentionally or not, as well as other things. And if we are fortunate enough or lucky enough, they pass us their love as well. Fathers are always, of course, as I say, less than perfect. The dark side of fathering includes abuse, betrayal, violence, patriarchy, and so forth. This is the side that embodies the repetition compulsion, the temptation to do things to other people that were done to us as a child. We realize now that hurt people hurt people. The dark side of fatherhood certainly exists, and we need to recognize it for what it is. We need to name it when it occurs. whether in individual homes or in national leaders acting their version of the repetition compulsion on the world stage, acting that out, if you will, seeing how the compulsion enables us to have some compassion for the father figure who is repeating it, but it should never serve as an excuse. Hurt people. This we know, and we cannot and will not condone offender behavior. Part of our work as Unitarian Universalists, and one of our reasons for honoring our fathers, is to stand up for models of caring, compassionate fatherhood. So many fathers work hard to provide for their sons and daughters. They love them and care for them. Some of those fathers are stern, even as they are loving. They encourage their children to learn and to grow and to develop, to build confidence in their abilities. And all of these things are so often done out of a place of love, of love for the child. And then there are fathers like my dad, and probably like me, who are sentimental and emotional about parenting and who just let their kids know they love them. The main quality in a father, it seems to me, is the existence of that love at the core of the relationship. As the saying goes, you can never give your children too much love. And so today, let's hold all of our fathers in our hearts, if we can. And if we can't, then we can't. All fathers have faults and they all have strengths. If we are fortunate, they held us when we were sick. If we were fortunate, they fed us when we were hungry. Perhaps they tucked us in at night and read us stories. They've taught us many things. How to pound a nail, how to fix a flat tire, how to catch a baseball, how to ride a bike. At some point in your life, you realize that your dad can't fix everything because your dad is fallible and he is growing and changing as you are. At some point in your life, you realize that your dad really, what he offers is love. And even though it must be admitted that not all dads are able to offer that, we can acknowledge more generally that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And at some point in your life, you realize that your dad is fully human with all that statement implies. When all is said and done, usually more is said than done. And yet the role of parents, mother and father, is to parent by example, to model behavior for their children. And there are only two bequests we can hope to give our children. One of these is roots. The other is wings. I leave you this morning with a typical humorous and razor-sharp, insightful observation from Mark Twain regarding his father. Twain says, when I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant. I could hardly stand to even be around the old man. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much he had learned in 7 years. May we remember our fathers as much as is humanly possible with fondness on this Father's Day. May we hold them in our hearts. May we release our anger and guilt feelings. May we think of them with forgiveness and love. Happy Father's Day. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Please join us in singing our closing hymn this morning, hymn number 128, a hymn of thankfulness and praise for all that is our life. Whatever we can do, whatever we can dream that we can do, let us begin it. Boldness has genius and power and magic in it. May we ever be bold in our living and in our loving. Happy Father's Day to all. Have a wonderful afternoon. Abracadabra, and off we go.